are doing something a little different this year, and it's just going to take a moment to set up the next part of the program, so if you'll just bear with us for a second. Tommy, one chair. Yeah. No, two. Not the buddies coming out.
Give me a chair back, Paul. Oh.
Yeah. You can. Three cheers, Tommy.
One more chair.
Yeah. You're probably all dying of curiosity, aren't you? Well, we have been involved in trying to identify those very special people that occupy an important place in our culture and have made a unique contribution to it. And we've covered our bases with the Vandalia Award. We have this year, for the first time, unveiled the posthumous award for those people that would have gotten the Vandalia Award but passed a long time before it was ever established. Tonight, we honor three very special women who have left their mark on the culture of West Virginia. Annually, we have our juried quilt show in the Great Hall. People send their quilts in. We have an objective juror select quilts that makes up a show, and we hang the quilts up. This year, we did something very, very special because of a very, very special lady. The quilts you see hanging out there are the work of one individual, and they're just a very small representation of her total output. She is the late Wilma Byrd. She was born in 1903 in Lincoln County, one of 17 children. She learned to quilt at the age of 9. She was taught by her grandmother to work from feed sacks and clothing scraps. She made quilts for warm bedding rather than for display. Over her long lifetime, she created more than 100 quilts, many designated for a particular relative, a family in need, or as an annual gift to her pastor. She preferred traditional styles, but collected new patterns from a variety of sources, including newspapers and magazines. She was an avid gardener, cook, and canner by day. Mrs. Byrd spent her evenings with needlework. She did crocheting, sewing, and embroidery, as well as quilting. As a widow for the last 10 years of her life, she devoted herself fully to quilting. She delighted in spending her Social Security check on quilt fabrics, sometimes traveling to outlet stores to increase her buying power. In her older years, Mrs. Byrd feared that her failing eyesight would curtail her quilting. Fortunately, her needlework continued after cataract surgery. Eventual blindness in one eye did not end her ongoing love affair with quilting. Death itself waited for Wilma Byrd to finish her work. Friends believed she prolonged her life long enough to complete piecing the flower basket quilt displayed in the Great Hall. Mrs. Byrd was a demonstrator here at Vandalia, and usually you just don't find a large enough group of quilting together so that you can have an exhibit. But I started talking to her about 5 years ago about letting us exhibit her quilts, and she said absolutely not. She was a very shy person and did not see anything special in them. And so I kept talking with her, and the year before she passed away, she agreed to do that. So rather than, this is unique, I might say, too. I know of no place in the United States or the world where there have been a retrospective of the output of a quilter. And so I think you're seeing something historically for the first time out there in the Great Hall. Tonight, we have with us at Vandalia her daughter, her granddaughter, and her great-granddaughter. Her great-granddaughter has worked so hard as a volunteer today that she's not able to be with us. Her daughter is Betty Stacy, a dear friend of mine, that pretty woman in the blue dress with her hair piled high upon her head. And the lady next to her, Lynn Schaefer, is the manager of our craft shop. And Lynn is her granddaughter and was very close to her grandmother. So because of their generosity, West Virginia and the United States are able to enjoy this magnificent exhibit. Would you please honor Wilma Byrd with a big hand? And now, Betty and Lynn, would you come over here, please? I think they have something to say. Who wants to speak?
I will. On behalf of my grandmother, Wilma Byrd, and her relatives, we'd like to donate this quilt to the permanent collection of the state of West Virginia. It's a scrap quilt. Most of her quilts were scrap quilts. They may not be the best in quality or the prettiest, but she used every piece of fabric that she found and never wasted a bit. And there's so many West Virginia quilters like this that they ought to be honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to personally know these next two ladies. I met this next one back in the mid-'60s. She is Marie Bodie, Dr. Marie Bodie. She was born in Parkersburg, West Virginia in 1895. She graduated from high school in 1913 and began teaching music in local public schools a few years later. She soon became Wood County's first supervisor of music. She received her B.S. in music from New York University in 1934. In 1936, Marie joined the music faculty at West Virginia Wesleyan. She received her M.A. from Ohio University in 1942. Graduate school field work led to a lifelong interest in mountain ballads. The culmination of her research came in 1971 with the publication of Sing a Hipsy Doodle and Other Folk Songs of West Virginia. This book includes the words and music of nearly 100 songs collected from the mid-1930s to 1969. In 1954, she received an honorary Doctor of Music degree from Davis and Elkins College. Dr. Bodie composed the West Virginia Centennial Song in 1963. Young Marie Bodie was named Parkersburg's Woman of 1920. In 1980, her native city again honored her with a Festival of American Heritage Music. In 1982, a Marie Bodie Endowment for pipe organ students was established at West Virginia Wesleyan. In 1982, she also received an honorary doctorate of humane letters from Wesleyan. As a dedicated music teacher, Marie Bodie considers her thousands of students to be her greatest contribution. We honor her as well for other legacy, the collection of folk songs she assembled over a lifetime. And on a personal note, I can say that if it weren't for Marie Bodie, many of the priceless treasures of our culture would be lost forever. Marie, it's a great pleasure for me to honor you on behalf of the Vandalia family and to present you with this distinguished West Virginia Award presented to Marie Bodie for outstanding achievement and meritorious service. The state of West Virginia hereby recognizes your exceptional accomplishment and confers this commendation in your name. In testimony whereof, we cause the great seal of the state to be affixed, done at Charleston this 27th day of May in the year 1989, Gaston Caperton, Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Marie Bodie. Here, Marie.
you all. Thank you all so very, very much. I really had a speech, and believe it or not, it's in my pocketbook that someone is carrying for me. So I won't give you a speech, but my life has been music. And I have had so many wonderful experiences with it. And I just hope that all of you will carry on whatever you like to do and have the joy of meeting people and helping others as we go along day by day. Now, I do have a song that I remember and I don't need my book for, so I'm going to sing it for you. That's my final. Oh, brethren, now our meeting's broke, and brethren, we must part. And if I never more see you, I'll love you in my heart. When we land on that shore, and we'll shout forevermore. When we land on that shore, and we'll shout forevermore. Thank you.
Yeah. She could, that's okay. It's kind of emotional for me knowing these folks so well, that finally they're getting the recognition they justly deserve. Dr. Louise McNeil Peace, the Poet Laureate of West Virginia. She comes from the rocky farms of Pocahontas County. She was born at Buckeye in 1911, and she began teaching in a local one-room school at age 19. Dr. Peace earned a BA from Concord College and a master's degree at Miami of Ohio. She attended the Bread Loaf School of English in Vermont, where she worked with Robert Frost. She holds a PhD in history and English from West Virginia University. Dr. Peace became an assistant professor at WVU in 1948. She later taught at Potomac State College, Concord College, and Fairmont State, where she was professor of history until her retirement in 1973. Also known by her literary name, Louise McNeil, the distinguished poet was named West Virginian of the Year in 1985. She has published poems in periodicals ranging from Harper's and Atlantic Monthly to Good Housekeeping and Saturday Review. Her best-known book is Golly Mountain, a volume of poems published in 1939 with a foreword by Stephen Vincent Benet. Her most recent book of poetry, Elderberry Flood, was published by the Department of Culture and History in 1977 and is a trip through the history of West Virginia told in poetry. Her autobiographical memoir, The Milkweed Ladies, was published by the University of Pittsburgh Press in 1988. In it, she returns to her beloved theme of life in the mountains, touching us all with a longing for simpler and sweeter times. Louise? It is a great honor for me to present to you the Governor's Award in the Arts, the first one presented for literature.
Well, you won't believe it, but Once when I was little and played on the hill, one wondrous evening I dream of it still. Mom called me to dinner, impatient I knew, so I lifted my hands up and flapped them and flew. I lifted my hands up and flapped them, and lo, I was flying as fast as my short legs could go. The hill whirled beneath me, all cloudy and green. I lit by the yard fence, and no one had seen. I told them at dinner, I said, I can fly. They laughed, not believing. I started to cry and ran from the table and sobbed, it is true. You need not believe me. I flapped and I flew. I told them next morning. I told them again. For years I kept telling. They laughed and I ran. No one would believe me. I ceased then to tell, but still I remember it well. One soft summer evening up there on the knoll, before life had harried the reach of my soul, I stood there in twilight, in childlight and dew, and I lifted my arms up and flapped them and flew.
Dr. Louise McNeil Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, three great West Virginians, Wilma Byrd, Marie Bodie, and Dr. Louise McNeil Peace.